Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Restituto, and what you're about to see is what I think a really phenomenal conversation, a really fun and informative conversation with Idania Valencia. Really think you'll enjoy it. She's worked with some really phenomenal artists, including ex-ambassador Shawn Mendes, Sam Smith, James Arthur, a whole slew of artists in the mastering field, and I really think that you're gonna enjoy this conversation. It's really inspiring, so stick around, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Restituto, and I'm a musician from Northport, New York, and today we have the absolute pleasure of having Idania Valencia on the channel. I really appreciate Idania taking the time all the way from Edgewood, New Jersey, for coming on the channel. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. So you work just like a couple of other people that we've had on the channel for interviews, including Chris Geringer a couple months back. At this point, actually, many months back. But we've had him on the channel from Sterling Sound in New Jersey. And you also work at Sterling Sound as a mastering engineer. So I would love to hear your story and about what you do in the music industry, kind of giving a backstory of what you do, but also how you got there. So I'll give you the floor and you can welcome yourself to everybody. And I appreciate you again for taking the time.
Hi, everybody. So I guess, yeah, let's go to the beginning. I am actually from Mexico City. I grew up in Mexico City, and there I was really interested in music, so I decided to study music composition. And the school where I studied at also had like audio engineering and production. And my parents like kind of encouraged me to take both degrees like as a backup because well, music is a hard like career path. So I did, and like the more I got into engineering, the more I realized like I really liked it because honestly, before that, I had no clue about it. Like I honestly did it like to please my parents, and I had no clue
Hmm.
like about recording or producing or anything. And I guess because I was always kind of pretty good at school and studying, like it really resonated with me, all like the technical side of it. I like the steps and all the things you have to know and how technical it is. And I just started really liking it. And eventually, like towards the end of the career, I realized that I really liked mastering. When I discovered what it was, because it was kind of really towards the end of it, and when I realized like mastering was a thing that it existed, I was like, oh, I really love that. Like, I think it's like, I thought it could really complement also like, me like having a side, like doing competition and stuff. But what ended up happening is that it became like my main thing. So that was in Mexico, and after that, I I decided to go to Orlando, Florida, a school, Full Sail University, to kind of study a little bit more of music production and recording arts. And there I had an idea already that I really liked mastering. So I was like, when we get like to that point in the courses and stuff, I'm gonna, I completely decide. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was the last class, obviously, because it's the last step on music. And when I got there, I was like, yes, I'm gonna pursue this. I'm just gonna when I graduate, I'm gonna like find a studio where I can intern, and I did. So most mastering studios are in New York. So that's where I decided to kind of start looking. I sent resumes to absolutely all the studios that I could
Very
find,
interesting. Yeah. Cool.
and many like most didn't even reply, I would say. But so some replied and said like, oh, thank you, we're not interested. I also called many places, and actually Sterling, I did talk at Sterling, and they told me that they didn't have interns
Oh, wow.
at the studio. So like, but they would like take my resume and to email it just in case. And then what ended up happening is that my now husband had an interview at Electric Lady. So I decided to go come with him to New York, and while he was like doing like his test day or whatever, just go and again and but in person like deliver some resumes and
Mm.
stuff. And one of the places I went to was Sterling Sound, and I left my resume there.
So you just
And
showed up and handed your resume.
yeah,
I love that.
yes,
Good for you. That's awesome.
yeah, it's a kind of a crazy story. So I did, and they called me back like a few days later. And honestly, like we were back in Florida by then, and I told them like, yes, we were definitely like moving to New York and stuff. And they were like, oh, when you get here, just give us a call back and like let's meet and let's get you an interview and stuff. And then as soon as I got here, I called them and then I went for my interview. And then, like, next Monday, I was interning at Sterling Sound.
What a phenomenal story and how you got there. It's honestly, I appreciate the I guess the audacity that it took, the courage that it took to, like, one thing. First of all, I think it's funny because I had a conversation with my wife recently and a couple of friends, and they were talking about phone call anxiety. How so many people in our
Yes,
generation like would rather text rather than call, which whatever, it's no big deal. But she was saying how it's funny, like that my wife was like, yeah, Jacob like doesn't have a problem calling people. He'd actually prefer calling people, and it's kind of similar because I have the relation of like calling so many places to try and get gigs or try and do music
yes,
with it
yes,
and getting denied, that when I'm calling one of my friends for a question, it's no big deal. You know what I mean?
yes. Well, I have to say though that I have the call anxiety thing that
Oh,
we all
even
have.
outside of work, you have it.
Yes, yes, completely. I don't like talking on the phone, but
It's funny.
it's just I had to.
Yeah,
It's just those types of calls that you just have to do,
a
and
hundred
there's no
percent.
way around it. And I guess like when I see it that way, I just can't do it.
Yeah,
It's when I started thinking a lot about it, like, oh, I have to call this person, or I have to call the doctor, I have to do this, and then like, oh, I don't want to do it. But I guess I was kind of so excited about it that it
mm,
was like, oh, I just have to do it, like,
sure.
and I did it, or just showing it up in person and stuff. Yeah.
No, well, I
I don't
admire
know.
that.
I just have to say that I'm kind of a shy person, but sometimes I don't know, out of nowhere I just get the courage to do things and
Yeah.
people are like, okay.
Well, I
Yeah.
admire that. And I think that that's really what it takes. It's people we talk a lot about what it in these conversations on these interviews, because my goal with these interviews is essentially to inspire other artists and other people in the music industry that it's possible to make a career in the music industry, because so many people are saying that it's not possible. So I like providing proof that it is possible, right?
Yes.
But a lot of all it is one, just showing up and being courageous to show up, and then two, continually showing up. So it's not just, hey, I made one phone call. It's, hey, I made a bunch of
Yes.
phone calls. I sent out a bunch of emails, a bunch of resumes, and I showed up at the doorstep. Like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I really kind of like called, sent the
Yeah.
resume, went in there in person, and eventually, like, I honestly thought when I saw the studio like in person when I went to leave my resume that like they will call me from anywhere except Sterling Sound because it was just so big and it had so many engineers and stuff. And I was like, I don't think they're gonna just need like a random intern like that just graduated from Florida. But it's just crazy things
I love
happen
it, man. You
sometimes.
never discredit yourself. You never know. You never know. So why not
Yeah.
try? I love that, man. That's so because you're right. Because Sterling was then and is still probably the top mastering house. I guess was that what you call it? The mastering house, mastering
Yeah,
place, production,
studio.
yeah, mastering studio,
Hmm.
probably in the music industry at the moment. At least in pop music for sure. So it's
Yeah.
it's pretty remarkable. Like just like you said, it's intimidating, but you never know. So I want to kind of piggyback on a couple of things that you had mentioned. One thing that I thought was really interesting, I had read in your bio, and you had briefly mentioned it in your backstory, but you had mentioned that your parents wanted you as a backup plan from your music composition degree to study engineering and production, and I just thought that was quite a cool like little caveat, just because it kind of I think shows where your parents sat with the music industry and like your career choice. Because I think most
Yeah.
people's parents' backup plan has nothing to do with the music industry, but the fact that not, yours were if they want their kid to join the music industry at all. But the fact that not only did they allow you to do it in the sense of like they encouraged you, said, okay, go for it, but have a backup plan also in the music industry, it's pretty remarkable.
Yes, yeah. Well, my parents have always been very supportive
Hmm.
of what we and like me and my siblings like or want to do. But it's also, I have to say, it's just the fact that the career, the name of it was audio production and engineering. That was the name in Mexico. That got them kind of fooled.
Oh my gosh,
You know?
the engineering aspect.
Yes. Yes, I think they didn't really know,
Oh,
and
that's funny.
I was not gonna tell them,
That is
obviously.
so funny. Hey, it worked out. That's amazing. That is so funny. That's really,
Yeah,
really funny. That's a great way. Hey, people, kids, if you're listening, that's a great way to get
yeah.
your parents.
It
I'm gonna
sounded,
be an
yeah,
engineer, mom. I'm an engineer.
it sounded like that, yeah. Like, and as I told you before, like I was very good at school
Yeah, yeah,
always, and
yeah.
I guess they thought, I was gonna end up being like a scientist or something like that. And when I told them I wanted to be a musician, they were like, "Oh, okay,"
Sure, sure.
So
That's
say,
amazing.
yeah,
That's a great way, a great loophole to tell people, oh, I'm an engineer.
yes,
Oh, really? A music engineer? Yeah, that's so funny. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm an audio engineer.
in all reality, most people don't recognize the fact that a lot of music is math. There is a lot of math inside of music.
Yeah, it is, but also on the technical side, like it's not a career where you go and you take a bunch of like math
No,
courses
for
and
sure.
like physics and stuff. Like,
For
yeah, there
sure.
was something, but it was not like that intense.
Yeah.
I guess they thought I was going and like doing a lot of math and stuff, and then they realized like, no, she's just going to the studio like at 3 a.m. and it's just
That's
weird.
amazing. So one of the, in addition to that though, in addition to your parents' backup plan, what I also find interesting, kind of beneficial to where you are now, is the fact that now you're doing mastering full time, but just now you kind of also have you can pull on your different hats in the sense of you were pursuing
Yes,
the music career as an artist, but you also studied as a producer, and now you're working in mastering. So you have experience in all different aspects of the music career, where you can pull from different aspects in the sense of like sometimes you work with or you hear or work with a mix engineer that isn't necessarily a musician, so you don't
yeah.
necessarily get the musicianship of the song. Might have great ears, and that's great, but there is something to be said about somebody that has the creative aspect of being a musician. Now you have all three of those, which is a really cool aspect to tie in when you're mastering music.
Yes, yes. And I do think that it's important to have some type of like back
Hmm.
knowledge in music, at least like play an instrument or have been part of a band or just some type of education because it also helps you like realize like technical mistakes, like I don't know,
Mm.
a bad edit, for example, or like we get a bunch of edits sometimes like to make them shorter for radio and stuff, and if the engineer wasn't like good at counting beats and stuff, like they might have a bad edit, and just that kind of
Yeah.
musicality can tell you like, no, that's not where it's supposed to be.
It's a win-win-win. And then not only that, now you also work with your every once in a while. I interviewed your husband first, Fernando
Yes,
Reyes. The advantage of also being able to kind of like throw in ideas back and forth. Where he works on the other side, kind of on the other side in the mix engineering side, the mix production side of the mixing. My titles are all over the place today. I guess he's a mix engineer.
yes.
So, which is actually before we even get into that, can you explain for people that might not understand, or might not be super familiar with the difference between, say, for example, music production, music mixing, and music mastering? So, like
Yes.
what you do and maybe
Um,
what Fernando does, and then.
yeah, so I would say it like if you can compare it to like making a movie or a show. Like for example, our side, specifically Fernando and mine, is what would be called post production. It's what really comes after they've recorded the parts and they've like made a plan and how it's all gonna go together and stuff. So the producer usually like gets the song and decides like, oh well, this song is gonna have these instruments, have the vocals are gonna go like this and like that. It kind of puts an idea together um, of how the song is gonna
Mm,
be finalized, and what parts it's gonna have and everything. And then comes the mixing engineer who basically takes that and he polishes all the sounds and all the parts to make it sound like a song. And then afterwards, like we come as mastering engineers when the song is done and the production and the mixing engineer, everyone is happy. And we just do the final step, which is one, like level it, like make sure like the volume is competitive to the
mm,
industry, all the other songs in the radio or streaming services. But we also have a little bit of a creative input because it's the last set of ears, and we can touch up EQ, brightness, low end, the vocal, mids, open it, close it, whatever. We can do little things to enhance the song so it would be like polishing it even like further. And yeah, that's basically what we do.
yeah, it's a phenomenal explanation. I'm curious. You mentioned something. The industry standard loudness. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on that. Just how important that is to match industry standard loudness. Is louder better? Is dynamics better? Where do you sit on this whole loudness argument?
It's a difficult topic to explain because yes, people tend to think that louder is better. There's two reasons why. One, because things that are louder usually just tend to grab your attention more. So you will like automatically, if you listen to the same song like 2 dBs louder, you will be like, oh, this one is better than that one because it just sounds a little bit louder. But also it's from the competitive standpoint of where people want when their song comes on the radio or in a playlist to like really stand out and like be
Mm.
like, so they think that loudness is what's gonna make their song like grab people's attention. Like, oh, if the start of my song is the loudest, then everybody's gonna be like, hey, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
But people believe that, and they don't care that they, in the like process, they are sacrificing like dynamics and over limiting, over compressing, and kind of distorting the track.
Mm-hmm.
And so my point is, I mean, I think obviously there's a loudness range that it's always good and professional where you don't sacrifice quality. Obviously, when you have to raise things, there's always gonna be like limiting involved and stuff. So, but the way to do it is to make it loud enough, but not trying that song to be the loudest, just trying to be loud enough, you
Sure.
know? And if you feel like even making it loud enough is kind of sacrificing something, then just maybe a tiny bit quieter,
Yeah.
It doesn't like people have volume knobs, and I think that's what sometimes they like don't remember,
Yeah.
like, if a song sounds really good and dynamic and you want it louder, just raise the volume.
Well, it's an interesting argument because it's almost playing on the aspect of like the cement. It's almost like clickbait to some degree because if they
Yes,
catch your attention right off the bat, it doesn't they're not thinking necessarily of the quality of the content. It's the clickbait of, oh, I just need to get their attention, and then that it's a which
yes.
there's something to be said about clickbait because it works, right? But
It
there's
is
also
like
something to be said about,
commercials.
yeah.
Yeah, like when you're watching TV and then the
Yes,
commercials come on, they
exactly.
are super loud and they're
Yeah.
just intended to grab your attention, but they become annoying sometimes, you
100%.
know?
Very interesting.
Yeah, the same thing happens with music. Like
Hmm.
if whenever song you're like listening and like going in between like a playlist, everything is like super loud and in your face. It's tiring, you
Yeah.
stop like really enjoying because it's like comes like, I don't know, like a stress factor.
Very interesting. You're right. There's only so much your brain can handle the stimulation. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I would actually like to go a little bit more into the semantics of what you were talking about, just the musicality of it. You're talking about compressions, you're talking about limiters. I love if you can expand on those for people that might not totally understand what that exactly means. So can you that's a good, I think a good question to ask is like, how would you define the difference between a limiter and a compressor?
Well, to start with, in mastering, we use limiters a lot more than we use compression. We would go for a limiter, like I would say 99% of the time, or like 90% of the time, and a compressor would be something that we would use more, like to kind of to try to use to like fix maybe dynamics or the volume relations in the song. It would be more something more technical than something to achieve like volume. A limiter we would reach for to achieve volume. And it's because the difference is that the limiter will raise the volume of everything up and like kind of put a limit to it. So it affects like the whole the whole volume of the song. It kind of like
Mm-hmm.
brings the details up and everything, and the compressor doesn't work like that. It's more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't necessarily like put a limit to it, it will just kind of um, control the general dynamics and bring them like closer, but
Mm-hmm.
not it's not as dramatic or
Yeah, yeah,
um, you know
for sure,
it's
absolutely.
not as intense as a limiter, which because of that, compressors don't really work for us
Mm-hmm.
that many times because we're working with something that's finished or kind of finished, and we are just trying to achieve like the same sound but louder. Like
Mm.
when you start doing compression and stuff, you're trying to affect the dynamics of the song and their kind of relation of instruments and all of that. Is more like a creative tool
Yeah,
that would like relate it a lot more like to mixing.
for sure,
We do use it sometimes, but it's not
for sure.
that common.
No, great explanation. I appreciate that. So now I'd like to backtrack a little bit back to the beginnings of Sterling. I'd love to hear about like, this is where you are now, but when you first started at Sterling, what did that look like when you first got that internship? Was it paid, unpaid? How long did you do it for? And then how did it transition into, now you've been there for several years and now you're working with some really phenomenally named clients.
So, well, I was really like right out of college, so it was really kind of intimidating. Um, but it was a very different um, internship compared to others like in the industry because to start with, it was true. Like they didn't have interest in Sterling until I was like an intern here. Now they have like once and then some interns, but at the beginning I was the first intern, and everybody was like, like what? What do we do? Like with so there was some live sessions going on, but most of it was like remote and stuff. So people were like they didn't have any kind of regular internship like things to make me do, like go buy coffee or go pick up this or go like that. So basically I started listening like from day one. So what I started doing as an intern was just QC, which is kind of quality check of the audio. So everything we do, every pass gets listened to, right? To check that nothing like went wrong during the capping or anything. So, it becomes a lot when we do like a full album and all the outs of the album, all the instrumentals, all the TVs, all
Wow,
the
yeah.
acapellas. So yeah, somebody has to listen to that, and I was that person at the beginning because when you QC like parts, it means everything was approved. We're just giving the deliverables to the client, so
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of safe audio. It's audio that's been approved. It's just basically delivering like the final audio versions.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's what I would do, and I would like make notes if I heard like distortions or if I heard weird like clicks or ticks or the audio was skipping, and that's basically what I did for a long. I would say the internship was about 3 months,
I mean,
and
the
that's what
benefit of
I
that
did.
is you get to hear all this new music way before anybody else gets to hear it.
Yes, yes, yeah. And I think one of the first albums I QC'd was the first Ex Ambassadors album,
Sure.
which is so crazy. And I was like, I didn't know who they
Is
were
that the
because they were new.
VHS album? Which album is that?
Yes, yes, that
Oh,
one.
huge fan of that album, man.
And I was like, oh, this is so cool and stuff. And eventually, like a few years ago, I got to master X Ambassadors. So it's just crazy. It was like a super like closure
Yeah,
moment, like how one of the first things you
yeah.
see it, and then I was able to master for them. So so yeah, it's just basically a lot of listening. So obviously, if you are interested in mastering and stuff, it's kind of a really slow process because yeah, you have to prepare your ears,
Mm-hmm.
for it, and the only way of really getting that experience is just listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at the beginning it was just listening. Then I started like learning a little more like technical things, how to do parts was one of the first things, or just preparing sessions, downloading files, very basic things that I
Mm-hmm.
learned to do at the beginning, and just like sitting with the other production engineers
Mm-hmm.
and just like seeing them work, and then kind of explain me, like how they top and tail songs, just how they put them in a sequence and how they space them for an album, and things that I didn't even know that mastering engineers did, which is like you never think about the spacing of songs in an album, but we usually do it.
Sure,
So
makes a big difference. Absolutely.
and yeah, that was for about 3 months. And then there was an opening, luckily, because there was a person that was gonna become assistant to Tom
Mm-hmm.
Cohen. And for some reason, it didn't work out, and they end up not moving forward. And I was there
Mm-hmm.
already, and I had been training already for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So they offered me the position. Thankfully, like it was such a luck thing too, like good timing. And I've been working for 3 months, and they've been like, like liking my progress and stuff. And yeah, 3 months later, I was like offered a part-time position. And during my internship, yeah, I didn't got paid, but I got like, I think it was like about $10 a day for food. And
Oh, you. I thought you were gonna say for a second the way you phrased that. I didn't get paid, but I got like $10 an hour or something like that. That's what I thought you were gonna say. But ten
no,
dollars a day for food.
yes, that was, oh, but I was so
A
excited.
hundred
Like I
percent,
didn't even get,
absolutely.
and then like
No,
Fernando, my husband, he was interning too, and
yeah,
honestly, he was getting nothing. So
yeah.
because that's common, that's just very common in the industry.
Well, it is, but it isn't in the
And
sense that I think that so many people now. That's the reason I actually asked this question is because I think that so many people now are feel this entitlement that like, oh, I should be getting paid, or oh, I should like. But so many of us started
yes,
by doing all this work for free because we wanted to learn and wanted to get our foot in the door, and
for
I think that
free.
that's lost now.
Yes, they don't realize, and I think part of it is because like they see other their friends in probably other industries going into these
Sure.
internships where they get paid, and where they get like extra time, and probably they also have their parents like, like I paid for your career, and because now you study for this, before you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But and just be like, I just spent like this much money like for you to
Yeah.
study like audio engineering, and now you're gonna get nothing,
Yeah.
like I feel like there's a lot of pressure from parents too, because they don't understand
Mm-hmm.
uh how this industry is,
Mm-hmm.
they are expecting, they are putting their kids through college, and they're paying for it or getting
Yeah.
loans, and then their expectation is that they go out and from day one they start getting paid like a regular job, but
Yeah.
it's just not the case.
No, it's so true, and it's I think that what really stands out is the people that are willing to put in the work and willing to like do the work for free. Or I remember even when I first started out, man, they were not even only working for free. There were times where I was literally offering, "Hey, can I pay you to work for you, so I can just learn?" You know, because obviously, you know,
Yeah.
when you first starting off, you don't really know much, so it's kind of to some degree a hindrance to the person you're learning from. So I was like, look, I'll pay you if I could just sit in your studio and like listen or watch, or you know, pay you for your time to review this, or you know. But I think that it pays off in the end, you know, just because
Yeah.
learn, like you said, experience is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I did feel so lucky, but that
Yeah.
is so true. Like, I mean, I do notice that entitlement in the new generation. I am not sure. You know, I think it might be part of like the parents' pressure too, but it's like, I mean, when I got out of college, I knew what to expect. I knew I was probably gonna go get an internship and it wasn't gonna be paid, and I would have to they told me like, you know, you're gonna have like be cleaning bathrooms and like doing coffee runs and like taking out the trash and stuff like that. And I was ready for that.
Yeah.
So when I got at Sterling, you know, and there was no runs to do, you know, it was just like listening to audio all day and then like getting $10 for food. I was like, it was incredible in my
Yeah,
opinion.
absolutely. And it's I'm not even saying to some degree that it's anything wrong with this next generation. To some degree, I think that it's the world we've created where there's really not a ton of discomfort, and a lot of people do like. I think the reason entitlement exists is because we've created a culture where it can exist. You know, it's like there isn't
Yeah,
much. A lot of people do get stuff. It's easy to get things these days. Like you said, a lot of people come out of college getting opportunity, and so there it almost creates this culture where it's not even, you know, the people coming up's fault. It's just the culture we've created. But I would love to move on to now, like your day to day at Sterling. Now, so you've been there for a couple of years. You started as an intern. You got a job as or you were hired as an assistant. Now you do your own mastering. So I would love to hear what the day to day as a mastering engineer at Sterling, or for you, just typically looks like.
yes. Well, I currently do my own mastering, but I also still assist Randy
Cool.
Merrill. So my day to day, it will be like split into two because my first part of the day is just basically still like doing a bunch of parts, production, QC, just checking
For
whatever
Randy.
gets mastered for Randy. Yes, whatever gets mastered, you know, fixing things if there's anything to get fixed. He has another assistant too, but I'm like his main assistant. So I would do all of those things during the day. And then later I will jump into my mastering, which is just I have a schedule and we here work schedule based. So basically I get in my computer and I see what are like the things that are like in my schedule for today. And I just two, three, four artists. I just go download the song, check it, listen to it, master it, upload, like check it and upload it because
Yeah.
I do all my production for me. I
Yeah.
don't have an assistant.
Yet.
So
Not yet.
yes, no, not yet, eventually.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I'll do all of that and then I'll do my production if I have any parts for things I've done, you know, like alts or albums or DDPs or CDs or whatever. I'll do that too. And yeah, that's kind of how my day looks like.
That's great. I love that. Now, I'd love to segue into your Mix with the Masters, which is a really, really cool opportunity. For people that aren't super
Yes.
familiar with with the Masters, I've been following that since probably it came out, I don't know, 2016 or something like that. I don't exactly remember, but it was like really, really giving a little backstory Mixed with the Masters, maybe you can do as well. But it's, I guess, a subscription program where they it's almost like Masterclass, the website Masterclass,
Yes.
where they have a whole bunch of different industry professionals explaining what they do in the industry and also teaching on their topic. But Mixed with the Masters is pretty much the exact same thing, only with people inside the music industry, and typically started with people just mixing, and now it's expanded to mastering. I think it might be even more, even to production at this point too.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
they
there's some
landed
production.
huge names in the music industry, and are continuing to. And you get to see how a lot of really popular songs are worked on, and it's really, really cool. So I'd love to hear your experience and how you got involved with that. And I just love to hear all about it, because that's an incredible, incredible thing to have on as a plaque on your wall, saying that you
I
had the
know.
opportunity to do that.
I mean, I've always known that mix with the masters existed, and I've also like seen many of their videos and stuff.
Sure.
And especially, I did more at the beginning of my career because I kind of knew a little bit more about mixing that I do now. So when I was learning, I was super interested in that, and also I would watch it like a lot with my husband Fernando, who's a
Mm.
mixer. And one day they wrote my manager and they asked him if he wanted, like, if I wanted to do a mix with the masters with him. I was like, what? I was like,
That's
me?
amazing.
Like, because Chris had already done a mix with the masters and Joe Laporta too. And I was like, but why? Like, because my career is definitely like really new, and I do have some credits, but I guess it's probably not common, to have a woman like mastering engineer. I don't know. They just asked me, and I was obviously super excited. I couldn't believe it was happening until the day we recorded, and I was like, okay, this is real. It is
Yeah,
happening.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but ironically, it's kind of coming full circle, because
Oh, yes, yes,
I was
yes.
at
I know what
Sterling
you're gonna
like the
say.
day you got the email, or maybe the day after you got the email
Yes,
from Mix with the Masters,
yes,
and I had lunch with Chris, and I guess a lot of the employees were there, and Liz was there, Liz Abramson. And I don't know, they were talking about you having the opportunity, and you were debating whether or not you wanted to do it. So it was really cool when then that was kind of the last I heard of it. But then it was really cool when I saw online that Mix with the Masters had posted your final product. And I was like, oh man, I'm so happy for it. It was so cool to see. And
yeah.
production, the trailers and stuff look so sick. So if people haven't seen it, definitely, there'll be a link down below, but also to go check it out. It looks so cool, man.
Yeah, it was really exciting, to get to talk about it. I realized I mean, I don't talk every day about mastering,
Hmm. Hmm.
and just the fact of like talking about it and going through my process,
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really fun, and just kind of explain a little bit of my um reasoning behind things,
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Look, it was really long too, because it ended up being a really long video. I think it's like 2 hours and a half. And so there's a bunch of information there. And
That's awesome.
yeah, I was just so excited.
No, it's such a cool thing, like I said, to have on your resume, to say that, because not, I mean, only a handful of people could do it, and a lot of, you're in company of great, great, great people. So it's a
Yes.
very, very cool.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
I'm so thankful really for that opportunity. And I mean, I don't follow it that much, but I sometimes like go and see like the comments. There's a little bit of everything, but honestly, just to see like
Welcome to social
or
media.
yes, receive comments of people, that they're like it is really helpful for
Yeah.
them, or that they really enjoyed
Yeah.
it or learned so much from it. It's just so cool.
So I was looking at the topics that you had within your Mix with the Masters, and you had several different topics. And obviously, I want people to go check out the Mix with the Masters. But I want to see if you could talk very briefly on one of the topics I mentioned that kind of caught my attention. It was studio design, and I'd be curious to just hear again, saving what you want for the actual course, but just briefly your thoughts on studio design, how important it is, how not important it is, what your just general thoughts are on general studio design in your experience.
So I feel like my point of view is a little bit different to other engineers in this topic specifically, because since my career has been a little bit different in the sense that I've been like a production
Hmm.
engineer first and an assistant, and then I started doing like my own work. But I really don't. I mean, I'm not one of the senior engineers who, like have a room or have had a room designed
Mm.
kind of for them. I've really have had to learn how to adjust to different spaces,
Hmm.
which I definitely think is doable. And I obviously think that the main space where you work, you have to be comfortable in acoustically enough that you can trust the room to work in. It maybe doesn't have to be the best treatment, but it has to be, comfortable enough that and you are sure it's translating well in, every
Mm-hmm,
medium.
mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, the rooms we have here upstairs they're insane.
Yeah.
Like they sound so good.
You could
And
hear your heart. It's
that
so silent in the room. You could hear your heart beating.
yes. No, it's so crazy that when we play like songs that have like a really big like low end and kind of resonant note, it makes me dizzy
Nah.
of because really nothing in the room is like moving or trembling
Mm.
or rattling. It just like is your own body. So I feel like yeah, they sound insane. But I
Yeah.
mean, that said, obviously it's hard to know. I don't know how to explain it because I've thankfully had the opportunity to take that room as a base or the room we were at Chelsea and kind of understand how it sounds and from that listening experience know how things translate to other rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that's my base room, and from there, I understand when I go to another room, like a production room, or to my house, like the differences in each room, and
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I can work here, but I know that my room has these kind of deficits, or
Yeah.
has these problems, and I have to work around them. And but the most important thing about that's probably what you're trying to get to, is like you have to have a reference
Mm.
that translates good in every room. And in my case, is headphones, and it's my headphones. Like I know my headphones so well because I've been working in them like for
Yeah.
8 years now.
Yeah.
That I know they're not the best sounding or anything, but they're professional level and I know them. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know when I hear there in the speakers and then I turn on to my headphones, like how things are supposed to sound. So with that, I can take my headphones down to my room and compare. And if they sound the same way in my headphones upstairs and downstairs, because they will, it's like, okay, something is good.
Yeah.
In my house, something is good. That said, like obviously you can have your room and tune it and whatever, but you always have to have one thing that helps you kind of put everything into perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And a lot of people have different like things. Some mixers, they have the little like kind of how do you call this? The cassette tape things
Mm-hmm.
that where they're really old but they listen to and that's their reference
Sure.
or their car or whatever. You have to have one thing that is always like true to you
Mm-hmm.
and like when things are good there, things are good everywhere.
Yes.
And that said, like room treatment, it is very important. But more important is that like what's going on in your room, because if not, you're gonna get used to like the wrong things of your room and start like incorporating. It's like learning to play an instrument wrong,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
trying to learn the right way.
exactly. And it's interesting. It's almost to some degree like what I've also seen is like you said, just learning. I guess like you said, what's available to you. Because like you said, sometimes even like for I'm gonna kind of give a metaphor for an experience I had when I was years in my career back in my career. I was recording for a client. They asked me to write a song for them. It was for a wedding, and I wrote the song, recorded the song. I was like, okay, this is a paying client. I gotta make this sound phenomenal. So I had like a cheap $100 mic at the time, if that. It was maybe the $85 mic. So I was like, okay, this is a paying client. Let me try to use this. So I borrowed from a friend this $1,000 mic. I had no idea how to use it. But so I
Yeah.
recorded with it and it sounded like butt. My $85 mic actually sounded better than the $1,000 mic because I didn't know how to use it and I was used to and knew how to work my $85 mic.
Yes.
So it's kind of the same thing with sound treatment. It's like you get used to and really know your room. It can sound better than if you were put in the middle of Chris Gehringer's studio where you hear
Yes.
the blood pumping in your veins. It's not going to be useful to
Exactly.
you because you don't know how to use it.
Yeah, like yeah, if you take me from here to another incredible room, but it's outside of Sterling Sound, I'm gonna be like, hey, okay, this sounds good, right? But
Yeah.
I need
Go
to
back to
listen
your
to my
headphones.
headphones. Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
And just to compare and
Yeah.
see the differences. But yeah, headphones are really important. I feel like through the years, many, especially mastering engineers, have been like really effy about headphones,
Hmm.
especially, you know. But I mean, I think yes, obviously they cannot show all the detail that speakers do and low end and a lot of things, but they can definitely give you a bass sound.
Hmm.
And they can also like distortion and things like that. The only way to really hear that is in headphones.
Yeah.
Sometimes distortion gets really like kind of hidden in the speakers because of the width of the room and everything, and you cannot listen to it
Yeah.
even like I find that sometimes when I hear like songs from some mixers that have distortion, I just think is they weren't checking in headphones. They were only listening in the
Mm.
speakers, you know. So I think you always have to go between the two of them
Sure.
to really hear
Hmm.
everything.
No, that's phenomenal. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain that. I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to wrap it up with some final questions. But you mentioned briefly that you had a manager, and I was curious to know at what point in your career did you find that you needed a manager, and how did you go about finding a manager?
Yes, well, I've this is gonna sound very snobby, but I've always had a manager because that's the way we work here at
Oh wow,
Sterling
cool.
Sound.
Okay, very cool.
Yes, so basically what happens is that the whoever the engineer I assist, and at the time I started with Tom, Tom had a manager, and that manager basically managed the whole team.
Mm.
And when it when I started mastering, she just shifted to being my manager too for my mastering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now it works the same way. I have a manager that I share with Randy Muriel,
Mm.
and also Matt, the other assistant, and he just manages all our schedules and all
Mm-hmm.
our time. And he also manages all my mastering
Yeah.
and my projects and whatever I have to do.
No, that's amazing. Very cool. I appreciate that. So, in
Yes.
conclusion, I like to conclude all my conversations with this question, and I'd love to know your perspective on it. What is something that you know now in your career that you wish you knew when you first started off?
I I don't know. Is
Okay,
that
how about
I
this?
just
I'll rephrase the question to, what would you tell? You're in a conversation with somebody just starting off in the same career path as you. What would you tell them? What is one piece of advice you'd give them?
well, I would definitely tell them to I mean, this was my case and I was probably very on the cautious side, but to be very patient, you
Mm.
know, like things come in the time they have to come and just sit down, like sit, relax, learn, ask questions, but also just give space to whoever you're working with and give them their time, you know, because you learn so much from just watching and just being around.
Yeah.
Uh, but just don't try to rush anything. Like things will happen. And I mean, the sad thing that a lot of people don't see is that things happen for everyone at different times in their lives. And yeah, for some people it might be when they're 19 or 20. For some people might be when they're in their 30s. For some people might be when they're in their 40s. And it's just you don't know.
Yeah.
But just, you know, like if you're doing your work and if you're being respectful and if you're training, you know, you keep learning and stuff,
Yeah.
like the opportunity will come, you
Yeah.
know? And
Absolutely.
I don't know, I've always been like that, just like waiting and eventually things do happen.
Well, it's not like you've been waiting and waiting. You're still. It's not like you're preaching something that hasn't come true. So you're
Yeah,
preaching
no.
it from experience. So I think it's very, very believable. So I love that. So in conclusion, like you're saying, be patient and things happen in the right season. Just be open to the opportunity when the opportunity presents itself by continuing to learn. So I really appreciate you taking the time. If you could hang out for 30 more seconds, I just want to say a big thank you to every single person that watched this interview, everybody that made it to the end of this interview. Definitely go check out Idiana's Mix with the Masters, but also all the stuff that she does. And if you are somebody in the music industry and want to potentially work with her, I'll put all the links down below. If she's taking on clients, I don't know, but
I am, of course.
We'll put it down below. So thank you so much for watching. Best way to support this channel is by checking out my own original music. I'll see you guys in the next video. Definitely consider subscribing, and again, go check out Idiana's work. See you guys in the next video. God bless and peace out.